Hello, welcome to the very first episode of the Buffy Book Club. Before jumping into the first book, I wanted to take a little time to introduce myself, my plans for this channel, and why I'm doing this. My name is Ethan, and I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. From ages 11 to 19, I pretty much just breathed at this show. Every day it was just Buffy, Buffy, and more Buffy, looking back probably to an unhealthy degree. But I digress. I'm 34 now, grown up, been through many highs and many lows, priorities shift, and all my time can't be spent lost in a television show, sadly. It's good escapism. Regardless, fandom for me started with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I know it's going to end with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. My plan for this channel is to do a retrospective review of the original run of Buffy the Vampire Slayer novels that ran from November 1997 to early 2008. I think January or March, not too sure. I loved these novels as a young teenager. Every time I got a new one, it felt like Christmas morning. I was just so excited to go on a new adventure with the characters I loved. Thinking back, I know they are going to be silly. Some I loved, some I definitely didn't. Some go pretty far out there. There's no major character development. There's no character assassination, thankfully. The authors had to work within some restrictions with Mutant Enemy. Think Monster of the Week episodes. Some are restrained and could be a regular episode. Some completely bonkers and could be an episode if that episode had a $500 million budget. The book series started off very young adult, but I think the publishers realized Buffy fans varied in age range and were honestly really smart and awesome. So they got split into two categories. Still the very young adult. These ones were shorter in length, lighter in tone, kind of like Goosebumps, I think would be the best comparison. And then there was a more adult category. There was darker content, more advanced writing, longer length, and more in tone with the television show itself. There were also quite a few character-centric novels published that were novelizations of episodes of the show, which I'm sure were cool in the late 90s, early 2000s, before DVDs and streaming, but they're kind of moot today, so those will not be covered. So why am I doing this? With a Buffy revival on the way, I'm sort of on a Buffy high right now. Now, the revival hasn't been picked up at the time of this recording, but I mean, it's going to, right? I mean, I'm trying to keep my expectations kind of tempered. I'm cautiously optimistic. But the thought of just seeing Sarah Michelle Gellar play Buffy Summers again in 2026, 2027, whenever, it's very surreal and very, very exciting. I also started a rewatch for the first time in a long while. It's fun going through it again with an adult mindset, and it holds up so well. And with revisiting Buffy, I'm also riding a wave of nostalgia and like childhood-like wonder, and that's sort of why I want to revisit the book series. Keep riding the wave. Are these books any good? Do they hold up? Capture the spirit of the show and the characters? I'm excited to rediscover and find out. Also, I just really needed a hobby, something where I can be a little creative and write some thoughts out. It's getting cold outside and I'm really, really bummed about it. Why I'm sharing my journey is because I love going down YouTube black holes of lore from different fandoms, especially expanded universe content. If I like a certain television show or movie or video game series but don't really want to go through the effort of buying and reading, odds are there's a YouTube video for that. Occasionally it's my favorite way to unwind at night and lull myself to sleep. I realize this is going to be super niche, and if I'm lucky, maybe reach 5 people who are in the depths of a Buffy YouTube black hole, but the thought excites me. It's also going to be a very bare bones approach. My computer can't run a video editing program. I'm just using my iPhone. Maybe I'll learn and get better. That would be cool, but I really have no idea what I'm doing. But regardless, this is the content I want to watch and listen to, and it's not really out there. So if you've stumbled upon this and read these books as kids and want to revisit, or you've always been curious about the books but don't want to actually read them, this is for you and for me. So with all that being said, let's get into the very first book. This is Halloween Reign. Chaos reigns. Around Sunnydale, they say a scarecrow saturated with Halloween rain will come alive and slaughter anyone in sight. Lovely place, Sunnydale. Buffy's best friends, Xander and Willow, used to think the tale was nonsense, but after a few adventures with Buffy, they're not so sure. Even without a maniacal scarecrow, a Sunnydale Halloween is a truly horrific happening. There are enough zombies and vampires about ready to party hardy and eat some brains to keep the Slayer and her friends up all night. and then the rain starts to fall. Oh shit. Halloween Rain was written by Christopher Golden and Nancy Holder and released in early November 1997. Christopher Golden and Nancy Holder wrote the most Buffy books, sometimes as a duo, sometimes separately. Overall, their quality was pretty good in terms of capturing the essence of the show and the characters. I think I remember them having some stinkers, but we'll get there when we get there. This is the first original Buffy novel. There was the 1992 movie tie-in, and right before Halloween Rain was released, The Harvest got released, which was just a novelization of Welcome to the Hellmouth and The Harvest, the first 2 episodes. So I don't really feel the need to cover those. We can just watch them on streaming now. The book definitely falls into the young adult category. It's a very short, brisk 160 pages, can be read in a few hours most likely. Usually when I see Halloween Rain mentioned online, it's always, it doesn't fit into the continuity. And it really does not. It takes place in season 1 during Halloween, when we know that Buffy transferred to Sunnydale High School in the spring of 1997. So this book takes place in the fall of 1996, when Buffy wasn't even at Sunnydale High School. The Buffyverse rules of how Halloween works was also contradicted. In this novel, Halloween is a big supernatural palooza. I think Buffy even refers to it as a Slayer Super Bowl at one point. But of course, in the show, we know that evil and supernatural and vampires, they all take the night off. They stay in on Halloween. I think we should cut the authors a little bit of slack here, though. The Halloween episode in season 2 of Buffy aired on October 27th, 1997, while this novel was released in November 1997. So this book was written well before the episode that established all these rules aired. But I mostly feel like, who cares? It's a fun what-if story. It's Buffy, season 1, Halloween. Let's just enjoy it, right? This is one of the first Buffy books I remember reading as a kid. My mom had bought me a bundle of used Buffy books on eBay, and this was the book I was most excited to read. I just love Halloween, I love rainy weather, and an evil scarecrow trying to kill Buffy just sounds actually kind of terrifying. I remember reading it in one sitting and having a good time with it, and I'm excited to see if it holds up. And with that, this is the story of Halloween Rain. The story begins the night before Halloween with Buffy patrolling in one of Sunnydale's cemeteries. There hasn't been a lot of supernatural activity lately, which she finds odd, especially since it's so close to Halloween, but she's not complaining about it. Just kind of pondering her normal day life, her Slayer duties, just trying to be a normal teenage girl, classic season 1 Buffy. Out of nowhere, she hears a woman's blood-curdling scream, grabs her stake, and runs off to try to find the origin. The screams continue as she runs through the cemetery. When she finally tracks them down, she finds a man bent over a gravestone and bearing down on a woman's neck. In true Slayer style, she leaps off of a gravestone and tackles the guy to the ground. Right before she goes for the kill, she hears the girl scream, "Stop! Leave him alone!" She recognizes the attacker as her classmate John Bartlett, and the victim, quotation marks, mother freaking Aphrodisia. And that just cracks me up, because you remember Aphrodisia, right? From the very first episode. What kind of name is Buffy anyways? Oh hey Aphrodisia, oh hey! And for some reason, that little line of dialogue just constantly plays in my head throughout life, just randomly for no reason whatsoever. And I just laugh every single time. And we never hear or see from Aphrodisia ever again. And she just shows up in this book. She's never in any other novel, she's never in any comic book. So I'm very, very glad that Aphrodisia gets her moment right here. And of course, she's a complete bitch. "What's your damage, Buffy?" Buffy, of course, is embarrassed and she apologizes. But honestly, I feel like these two should apologize because that's some weird shit they were doing. She wishes them a happy Halloween and she turns and walks away. And as she does, she can just hear John and Aphrodisia talking about what a psycho she is. Poor Buffy. So she is on her way home. She's going to eat all the frozen yogurt, and we'll see what Halloween has in store for her tomorrow. It's a gloomy, overcast morning in Sunnydale. Buffy arrives at Sunnydale High School to meet up with Willow and Xander right outside. They exchange happy Halloweens, and Willow's reading an arcane book that Giles lent her. Xander's cracking dumb jokes as per usual. They share Halloween memories, bobbing for apples, costumes, but Halloween's just not as much fun now that they live on a Hellmouth and actually have to fight all these supernatural creatures. Of course, Cordelia and Aphrodisia show up and insult them all. Aphrodisia talking about what a psycho Buffy is from last night. It's mentioned there's a masquerade party at the Bronze tonight. Buffy's gonna try to compromise with Giles, see if she can go, but she's thinking he's not going to let her. At some point during the day, Buffy is jumped by a student in a werewolf costume and she naturally knocks him down. He deserves it. And Cordelia is there with her usual venom, calls Buffy a walking X-Vial. Good one, Cordelia, but everyone laughs at Buffy. And Buffy tries not to be bothered about not fitting in, but, it eats away at her, as it would anyone, I assume. After school, Buffy heads to the library to see Giles. It's still early in their Watcher-Slayer relationship. Buffy wants the night off. There hasn't been a lot of supernatural activity lately. Giles, of course, is pretty wary because it's Halloween. He feels like something bad is going to happen. Willow and Xander join in. They try to plead Buffy's case with her, and Giles, just for some reason, just goes on an exposition about the history of Halloween. Honestly, it's very long-winded, and I don't want to get too much into it. But basically, in Celtic times, they would now be in the time of Samhain. The dead and the living could mingle between worlds. Over time, faith has now waned, and now it's just October 31st to the 2nd of November. Without the rituals and offerings to control them, the evil ones are not kept at bay, so they should all be very cautious. Buffy, Willow, and Xander are just like, what's your point? Sunnydale's on a hellmouth. If Halloween was all that, the town would be destroyed decades ago. The time of Samhain is so over. Buffy and Giles compromise. Buffy's gonna go to the masquerade at the Bronze. She'll leave, have a look around. If everything seems okay, she'll go back to the masquerade. Seems to work out for both of them. Xander mentions it's been raining and not to go in any fields. Giles and Buffy are confused, and Xander and Willow tell them about the local boogeyman legend of Halloween rain. There's dark magic in the rain. If it soaks into a scarecrow and you trespass on its land, it's going to come to life and kill you. Giles brings up Samhain, not Samhain the time of year that we just talked about, Samhain the spirit of Halloween. They're spelled very similarly. Everyone's confused. I'm confused. Google pronunciation tells me they're pronounced the same way. Samhain was one of the demons who inhabited the world before the birth of humanity, and is one of the most evil creatures ever to walk the earth, vicious and cunning, and there are ties to him and scarecrows. Giles gets lost in his books, and Buffy, Xander, and Willow leave to get ready for their night. Buffy's at home, getting her costume finished. She's going for function and not form, going as a pirate queen. Knee boots, black shorts, and a red silk blouse tied in a knot. She can leap, kick, gouge, run, and skewer with the greatest of ease. Buffy's mom, Joyce, is of course unimpressed, but realizes she can't stop her and just be safe. Joyce is on the couch eating popcorn and watching an old horror movie. And before she leaves, we get a moment where Buffy feels guilty leaving her mom alone on Halloween. They just moved to a new town because Buffy got in trouble. Her mom hasn't made any real friends yet. And I feel like that's a really true to character Buffy trait that the authors really nailed, especially just having the first season to work with. Joyce offers to give Buffy a ride to the Bronze, but Buffy decides to walk and enjoy the light rainy weather, keep an eye out for any supernatural shenanigans. And when she arrives at the Bronze, it's one big masquerade as advertised. There's decorations everywhere, everyone's in costume having a good time. The authors really nailed the fun Halloween feeling. She meets up with Willow and Xander and assumes they are accountants in their suits. But they are actually Scully and Mulder from the X-Files, and that's actually a really cute idea. They're chatting and having a good time. And then we get this really odd scene where a vampire just bumps into Buffy. And I don't mean like somebody in a vampire costume, I mean like an actual vampire. And they trade some really odd insults, they threaten each other. He says Halloween is their night to be free. Buffy looks around and notices there's actually quite a few vampires in the Bronze right now. And they decide to make a truce. They won't feed, Buffy won't kill them, Everybody wins. It's very, very odd. And what's even more odd is that this truce just lasts about 3 or 4 paragraphs. Buffy notices exchange student Jean-Luc Picard talking to a vampire dressed up in a Cleopatra outfit, and she sees her take him down to the basement. Willow asks Buffy how she knows that she's a vampire, and Buffy just explains it's the way she walks. It's very Predator-esque, and also the pale complexion of her skin. Buffy tells Willow and Xander to hang tight, and she goes to investigate. Walking down to the basement, it's pitch black. Luckily, she has a flashlight in her Slayer bag. There are also candles hanging from the wall, which is very strange, I guess, for the basement in the bronze, but it helps her see a little bit better. She walks deeper into the basement, hears some laughter, turns on the flashlight, and sees 5 vampires feeding on 5 humans, including that vampire that she just made a truce with not 2 pages earlier, that bastard. Upstairs, the door slams. Why? It's never explained, but the vampires charge. Upstairs, Xander and Willow are wondering if they should go help Buffy or if their presence would hinder her. They decide to go help though, but as they're on their way, they are stopped by 2 people in costume, a cowboy and a saloon tramp. That's nice. And they want to party. Party with Xander and Willow specifically. They have no names, but the cowboy has blue eyes and the girl has red hair, so they are referred to as Blue Eyes and Red for the remainder of this book. Xander, of course, is attracted to Red and is very curious, but Willow, thankfully, can tell they are vampires. Blue Eyes and Red start to get a little rough, grabbing Willow by the arm with the intention of dragging them both into the alley, threatening them, saying if they cause a scene, they'll kill everyone in the bronze. Xander pulls the "We know the Slayer" card. They're good friends. Blue Eyes and Red back down, but promise that they haven't seen the last of them. Xander and Willow decide to wait for Buffy. Okay, sure. Meanwhile, Buffy's trapped in the bronze basement with the 5 vampires, and she slays them all with ease, the last one being the vampire that she made a truce with. He regretted that. Don't mess with Buffy. She checks on the 5 victims, and thankfully they're all still alive. She leaves them there and decides that they'll wake up and think someone put something in their drinks. That's pretty dark, but okay, I guess. She goes upstairs and meets back up with Xander and Willow. They are impressed that she took them all out. And honestly, I am too. Season 1 Buffy just taking out 5 vampires so casually, it's very impressive. Buffy takes a look around and she notices that there are still quite a few vampires in the bronze. But they aren't hurting anyone, and she decides that they should all just have a nice time. No, okay, I guess so. There's been a lot of odd things. Meanwhile, Giles has been researching in the library alone, feeling pretty uneasy and worried about Buffy. He's thinking about the entity Samhain, and then he remembers a Watcher's journal that had referenced him before, and he goes to look for it. Buffy, Willow, and Xander are having a fun time at the bronze, just chatting, gossiping, dancing, ignoring the vampires that are just in their midst, when all of a sudden, crazy Irishman, the town psycho, Mr. O'Leary, crashes into the bronze, shouting about zombies rising from their graves. Mr. O'Leary is a long-retired teacher from Sunnydale High School, and he has a reputation of just being crazy, ranting, shouting about random things. No one believes him. People are ignoring him or just laughing at him. And all the while, he's just shouting about zombies rising from the graves, and he's getting frustrated. Why won't anyone talk to him? Why won't anyone believe him? Suddenly, the bronze manager calms him down a little bit and brings him over to the bar. The bartender is gonna make him an Irish coffee because he's Irish. Very nice, very nice. Buffy, being the Slayer, hears zombies rising from the graves and decides to at least talk to him. And also she feels kind of kindred with him as well, being ostracized from her peers. Buffy walks over to him and kindly greets him and hears him out. She asks him questions, and he's just so relieved that someone's willing to have a conversation with him. It's actually kind of sweet. He talks about the zombies rising, Says no one believes him, but Buffy believes him. And then he talks about Samhain, the Pumpkin King, and now he has dominion over them and all supernatural creatures. But, crazy people, they can turn on a dime, and that's what he does. He thinks Buffy is messing with him. So he slams his Irish coffee on the ground, glass goes everywhere, and he's shouting again, and Mr. O'Leary is kicked out of the bronze. Buffy decides she should go investigate the cemetery, see if Mr. O'Leary is telling the truth about the zombies. That's what a Slayer would do, but she wants Giles' help. Xander goes to a payphone to try to call, but the rainstorms took out the phone lines. Of course they did. The three come up with a plan. Buffy will go investigate the cemetery. Xander and Willow will go to the library to get Giles. At this point, the book splits into two perspectives. It's Buffy, and then there's Giles, Willow, and Xander. We'll follow Giles, Willow, and Xander first before getting back to Buffy. Giles is still in the library going through Watcher's journals trying to get any information he can about Samhain. There's a weird scene where he's spooked by the janitor, Mr. Jones, and just after that he finds reference to Samhain in Timothy Cassidy's Watcher's journal. He was the Watcher to 17th century Slayer Aaron Randall from Ireland. In ancient times, the time of Samhain was celebrated by the Celts. There were feasts, candles for the dead, pumpkins carved, and the Pumpkin King Samhain was rejoiced. Eventually, the time of Samhain was lost in time. 3 months became 3 days, faith was gone, and Samhain was enraged. Jack-o'-lanterns would become Samhain's hosts. He could see everything but couldn't act. In the 17th century, farmers had unintentionally given Samhain a body by putting a pumpkin head on a scarecrow. Zombies rose, Samhain came to life, and he had his eyes set to kill the Slayer. The Watcher, Timothy Cassidy, provided his Slayer, Aaron Randall, with garlic and angelica that would be used as wards against Samhain, and there were sigils to draw that would trap him, and there must be fire to accompany it. Aaron had managed to destroy his scarecrow's host body, but he returned the following year and killed her violently. Timothy Randall mentions a weapon to bind him to the body, but it's very vague. Giles, of course, is very worried about Buffy, packs all the supplies that Timothy Randall had mentioned, and leaves to go get Buffy. After a long walk, Xander and Willow finally make it to the school, but are jumped by Red and Blue Eyes. They definitely kept their promise when they said they hadn't seen the last of them. They want to continue the party. Luckily, Xander has a cross with them and holds them back. Xander and Willow see Giles leaving the front door, and they make a break for it. Blue Eyes and Red give chase, and the three manage to barricade the door, use the cross to hold them back. But Blue Eyes and Red aren't going anywhere. They can't wait around until sunrise. Buffy needs them, so Giles proposes they slay them. Okay, so these next chain of events are just so comical to me because they just don't really make a lot of sense, and it's just so silly. But here we go. This is Giles, Willow, and Xander's plan to slay these vampires. So first off, they just discuss if vampires are allowed into the school without an invitation, which we know from the very first scene of the very first episode with Darla that yes, vampires can go into public spaces without an invitation. But Willow and Xander I can kind of give a pass to, but Giles, the Watcher, not knowing if vampires can enter a public building, that was strange. It's a very long conversation that they have about it as well. Alright, so their convoluted plan is as follows. They're going to trap them in the library, pull down the drapes on the windows, throw holy water on the floor, and tie the doors shut with garlic bulbs, and just assume that they'll be dusted at sunrise. Yeah, do the drapes in the library? I mean, I know there's like tall windows and like a skylight, but drapes? I don't remember any drapes. But, here we go. So as they're discussing this, they hear a window break somewhere in the school, and they get their answer. They do not need to invite the vampires, and they are free to come in of their own free will. Giles sends Xander and Willow off to prepare the trap. He's now armed with Xander's cross, and he goes to confront Blue Eyes and Red. Blue Eyes and Red attack, and Giles is able to fend them off, crediting his training sessions with Buffy. There's a moment where Blue Eyes jumps on Giles' back and pretends to ride him like a cowboy. As Giles is holding them back with the cross, Xander intervenes and the chase is on. When they get to the library, Willow is there and throws holy water on both the vamps and the floor. There are crosses hung all around the library. The drapes are down, and Giles, Xander, and Willow run out and tie garlic bulbs around the handles. The vampires are trapped. Trapped and presumably will be dust in the morning, because that's the last we hear from them. Giles, Xander, and Willow leave armed with a crossbow, Timothy Cassidy's Watcher's Journal, and a bag of supplies, and they head to the cemetery to help Buffy. So, we know that plan makes no sense whatsoever in the grand scheme of the show. Gonna cut the authors a little bit of slack again. They only had season 1 to work with. The rules were still being established. The vampires in season 1 are a little bit different than the vampires for the remainder of the show, I feel. So it's very silly, but it is what it is. So while Giles, Xander, and Willow were dealing with all that shenanigans, Buffy has arrived at one of Sunnydale's cemeteries. And Mr. O'Leary wasn't lying. There are zombies. They are all at the gate and they are trying to break out. Buffy sees about a dozen or so of them. The zombies are disgusting. There's empty eye sockets, all kinds of stages of decay, bones showing, limbs missing, skin hanging off. Slimy is used a lot to describe them, and the constant zombie moans being very grating and painful to listen to really gave a good Halloween spooky feel to the whole situation. Buffy climbs over the stone wall, jumps down, and starts taking them out, and it goes on for a few pages, and it's really gross. She's just kicking limbs off of zombies, pushing them down. She notices that more are rising. There's a lot more than a dozen in the cemetery. She's getting tired pretty quick. She's worried about Xander and Willow. She sees a Flutie zombie, a Principal Flutie zombie. That poor guy. Can't catch a break. Also, doesn't really make much sense because he was eaten by hyena-possessed teenagers. Buffy's starting to feel pretty overwhelmed. And things just get really weird again. There's a clown zombie. And Buffy thinks she recognizes this zombie. And she notices that it might be Mr. O'Leary. And meanwhile, she's grabbed from behind and she's being suffocated by a zombie. And then the real Mr. O'Leary jumps over the gate and saves Buffy. Now this clown zombie attacks Mr. O'Leary. Buffy pushes the zombie off of Mr. O'Leary and saves him. And we learn that this clown zombie is Mr. O'Leary's brother, Sean. He has been dead for 16 years, and he wasn't buried in a clown costume. It was done out of spite. And it's just left at that. I have so many questions. Why was Mr. O'Leary's brother, Sean, buried and then dug up and put into a clown costume? What did he do to deserve it? Why was it done out of spite? We'll never know. We'll never know. Buffy doesn't ask any questions either. She just wants Mr. O'Leary to be safe, so she tells him to get out of there, go to the high school, get Giles the librarian. He knows how to help. But Mr. O'Leary won't leave her alone. He's here to fight. And then Mr. O'Leary clutches his chest and drops dead. A lot just happened in half a page. Now the authors wrote something here that I had to go back and reread at least 4 times, and I cackled the first time I read it because it is just so odd, and it goes as follows. The cardiac police have come along and cuffed him. Heart attack city. I don't really have any words, honestly. But the zombies, they take Mr. O'Leary's body and they string him up on a tree like a scarecrow while Buffy watches in horror. The zombies keep rising and Buffy is getting overwhelmed. She needs to get out of there. She notices a 3-foot stone wall on the other end of the cemetery. And it's odd because the zombies are making no effort to go that way or go over the stone wall. She knows there's farmland on the other side. She makes a break for it. She runs towards that wall. Zombies are grabbing her, trying to pull her down. She's barely breaking through. She realizes she forgot her Slayer bag near the entrance, but cannot turn around to go get it. And she dives over that wall, quickly turns around and is ready to be greeted by a horde of zombies. But they just stand there on the other side of the wall. They make no effort to go over. and they're just staring at her with their empty eye sockets, making no noise. Buffy hears a bell tower in the distance, signaling it is now November 1st. Halloween is over. She's feeling uneasy. She feels cold. She feels like someone's watching her. She's trying to think about the quickest way to get back to the main road. She's standing in this farmland, and on top of a hill she sees a cross. But she realizes it's not a cross. It's a scarecrow perch, and the perch is empty. Buffy started to feel pure terror, so much so that she doesn't even want to go through the farmland. She's willing to go in the cemetery with the zombies and run back through one more time. She takes a running jump, and a force field knocks her back down. She can't go over the wall again. In the distance, she hears someone call to her, Slayer. Giles, Xander, and Willow arrive at the cemetery. They see a body hung to a tree. Assuming the worst, they run in and are relieved to find it's not Buffy. Off in the distance, they think they see gravestones moving, but quickly realize it is actually the undead. They quickly start being overwhelmed by the zombies. Knowing there is a scarecrow in the field on the other side, Willow shouts for Buffy. They are trying to get to her. Buffy tells them to go, but they won't leave her. Giles is working on it, and they fend off the zombies for as long as they can. Buffy continues shouting for them, but gets no response. The voice returns, telling her to come or they die. She feels so afraid. She's defenseless. She doesn't have her Slayer bag. She's trying to be brave. She's the Slayer. Lightning flashes, and she realizes that she's standing in the middle of a pumpkin patch. She's surrounded by jack-o'-lanterns, and with each lightning flash, they change position, getting closer and closer to her, pushing her up the hill. Beyond the pumpkin patch is an apple orchard, and in the far distance, she can see a barn. She turns to look up the hill, and when lightning flashes, she can see a figure. It's a scarecrow with its arms lifted up. There's a rotting pumpkin head, razor-sharp hay for hands, fangs, and blood gushing out of its mouth. Eyes are glowing green with flames. He opens his mouth and says, "Happy Halloween," while blood drips out. Samhain has arrived. Buffy backs away slowly but is feeling frozen with fear, jack-o'-lanterns biting at her heels. Samhain slowly approaches. He wants to rip out her heart. He takes credit for all the fear people feel. Dolls watching you, closet doors opening on their own, pile of clothes in the dark, monster under the bed, someone following you home. He smothers people with fear. He makes hearts stop, and he makes slayers die. Buffy is still terrified, but as he's talking, she realizes that she's faced these fears, for real monsters. She's scared, but she's the Slayer. She's gonna stop him. She says, "You're not much of a king. Besides, I didn't vote for you." And this enrages Samhain, and the rain starts pouring. He lunges at Buffy, and she dodges. She kicks him in the chest, but it's like kicking iron. Buffy runs down the hill and goes towards the apple orchard, while Samhain gives chase. A real horror movie chase scene breaks out. Torrential downpour, wind. Buffy's running and branches are whipping her in the face. She can hear him behind her. He's threatening her. She turns around. She can see flashes of green from his eyes, but can't make out how close he is. She makes it to the barn. She hides in some tall grass and mud. It's pitch black. All she can see are green flames, and Samhain's voice threatening her. He's going to find her. Buffy's crying. She has to stay alive. She can feel his stomps from his feet. She's deathly afraid. This is definitely the high point of the book for me. It's exciting, it's tense, it's scary. The authors do a great job of making it feel like a true Halloween horror story. Back in the cemetery, Xander, Willow, and Giles are still fending off the zombies in the pouring rain. They take refuge on top of a crypt. Giles uses Timothy Cassidy's journal to do a spell to deny Samhain's power over the undead. And it's like 3 lines. He says them, waves his hands in the air, and the zombies disappear. It was pretty easy. Thanks, Timothy Cassidy. Giles also uses the journal and the supplies he brought to create wards to protect them against Samhain, and will let them cross the barrier. He has used sticks and carved sigils into them. He douses them in angelica and garlic. He lights them on fire, and it won't go out in the rain because it's, well, magic. Giles confesses he's not sure if this will work. It worked for Timothy Cassidy, but who's to say it's going to work for them? He doesn't want to risk Xander and Willow's life. But they say too bad. They are helping. He can't stop them. They grab Buffy's Slayer bag, and they head over the stone wall. Meanwhile, Buffy's been able to evade Samhain's pursuit. She's quickly going back up the hill. She knows he's behind her and will catch up eventually. In the distance, Buffy spots the burning tips of the yew sticks and meets back up with Giles, Xander, and Willow. They are all relieved to find each other. Giles hands Buffy the journal to memorize the sigils that will bind Samhain in place. They need to burn them alive. Buffy figures the barn will be full of hay. It's perfect to trap him and set him on fire. But Buffy, how will you draw the sigils, they ask. Well, Buffy reaches into her Slayer bag, picks up her favorite Lilac Breeze lipstick. Incredible. Samhain appears. He's impressed by the wards that Giles had made, but notices the flames won't last forever. He's gonna kill them regardless. Buffy takes the crossbow and shoots him in the head. It flies through the rotting pumpkin and flames shoot out everywhere. He's not dead, but he's very pissed off. Buffy runs back towards the barn and Samhain chases her. The barn is thankfully full of hay, and Buffy climbs up the hayloft, Samhain right behind her. The green flames from his pumpkin head have ignited the hay, and the plan seems to be working. Buffy walks over to the large window, sees Giles carving a sigil into the ground. She takes her Lilac Breeze lipstick and draws a symbol on the windowsill. He lunges at Buffy and she jumps out of the window, landing hard on the ground. The barn is on fire, Samhain is trapped, and he is pissed. He goes to the window and says he'll be back next year, and he's gonna kill Buffy, just like he did Aaron Randall. He won't stop until she is dead. Buffy, thinking they've won, is very confused. But Giles says he's right, sadly. There will be another host. They need a way to bind him to his body, but the journals are very vague and don't say how. Buffy wants this to end now. She can't go on living in constant fear that he's going to come back. She has an idea. She grabs the crossbow, Giles' used stick, and starts to head back into the barn. They try to stop her, but she needs to take care of this now. Buffy fits the used stick into the crossbow strings as well as she can. She walks into the barn, all badass. It's engulfed in flames. Samhain laughing. He finally gets to kill her, but she takes aim and shoots him right in the heart, binding him to his host body. She runs out of the barn just as it collapses, Samhain screaming in the distance. They've won. Samhain is dead. And now for the darkly comedic ending. I don't know if the authors were trying to be funny or what, but they all look back at the burning barn. Giles wonders who owns the barn. They have to call someone. They can't leave. But Buffy, Willow, and Xander are like, no, we gotta get out. Buffy already got in trouble for burning down her school gymnasium. If we call someone, she's gonna go to jail. And Giles is like, oh, you're right. So they all laugh and walk away. And that, my friends, is the story of Halloween Reign. So was it any good? Not really, but that's not to say it's bad either. It's very cute, it's very silly, it's very charming. It's a time warp to those early years of Buffy, which I appreciate. It's very young adult, clearly, and I read this over 20 years ago when I was probably 12 years old, and I loved it. I actually remember most of it before reading, because reading this book was such a core memory for me, as sad as that might sound. So it was definitely fun to revisit. The authors really nailed the Halloween setting. Everything was described so that it felt like a rainy, dreary night. The Buffy speak was pretty hit or miss. Some of it was pretty cringy, but some things made me laugh. Characters mostly acted like themselves and stayed in character. The confrontation with Samhain was very exciting, definitely the best part of the book. The visuals the authors described really set the setting. It's very grotesque, very violent, and scary. Sadly, there are a lot of plot holes and plot devices to keep the story moving, undercut characters, Mr. O'Leary in particular. A lot of things that could have used explaining that just didn't get explained. But I mean, it's young adult fiction. You just kind of have to take it for what it is. So if you're feeling nostalgic like myself and want to read something quick and silly and go on an adventure with Buffy, Xander, Willow, and Giles from season 1, then I would recommend this book. With that being said, I think this is where I'm going to end the video. If you've discovered this video and made it to the end, thank you very much. It's a work in progress. I appreciate any comments or suggestions. And hopefully in the not too distant future, I'll be back with the second episode in the second original Buffy novel, Coyote Moon by John Vornholt. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen. See you next time.